Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro, and it's time to review Frankenstein. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, that is. The most faithful adaptation of the classic novel from Mary Shelley that we've had in a long time. And as with Nightmare Alley and Shape of Water, this is an absolutely gorgeous and huge-looking production. I got a warm feeling watching this, being in awe of the spectacle, an auteur-driven spectacle, the kind that we don't get too much anymore, because giving $100 million to an auteur director is not something that studios are willing to do so much. And I also found myself pretty swept up with the story of Frankenstein. So many of the themes of Frankenstein have made their way into the culture, and so maybe they don't feel all that new, but I still found myself really wrapped up in the characters and the story and some of the ideas here. There's no doubt that on a level of craft, this film is magnificent. The sets are expansive. They almost look like they're never ending. There's just every frame is eye candy. The costumes are delectable, and the cinematography is absolutely stunning throughout. Every frame really does look like a painting in this. Dan Lauston's lighting setups are absolutely gigantic. But honestly, I felt like this was missing something throughout. Even though I was dazzled by the cinematography, I did feel this was one of the elements where something was missing. It felt like this style was the same as Nightmare Alley and Shape of Water almost, where you have these very wide angle lenses, usually at hip level, that kind of slowly move in and out from characters. And it was so consistently that I felt like there was not as much cinematic punctuation with the storytelling. And really what I felt was oddly missing here, which normally I'd trust a filmmaker like Guillermo del Toro to excel in, was adding those personal touches. It really felt like it was just shot on a giant soundstage. They made it technically impressive, but they didn't make it as emotionally compelling as they could have. And I felt like even when we're engaged and connecting with the monster, we're often in these like medium shots. And I just started to feel at a distance from the film as a whole. I don't want to make it sound like the cinematography was the main culprit here for me. I really feel like it was a combination of the script and the pacing. This film could have had 30 minutes cut out of it, and I don't think I would have missed anything. And I would have just felt like, oh, this film moves at a normal pace. But instead, this thing plotted for me. I felt all of the 2 hour and 30 minutes of this and just wondered, like, man, how much further is it going to go? I think really what happened here is they just decided to tell the entire story. And they weren't very selective. They weren't very careful with like, okay, well, we wanted to really focus on the monster, so we're going to tell that story. But instead, it was like, we're going to tell the entire story of Dr. Frankenstein, which I just find is much less emotionally compelling. But it's so important to get the whole story, I think. Why is it important to get Dr. Frankenstein's story? Because the monster is a product of Dr. Frankenstein, so you can't really understand the monster. Yeah, you can. How he's inflicted on Frankenstein. He was created by someone's mad ego, period. Why do I need 80 minutes of that? I think that's just an oversimplification. I felt like in the first act of the movie, we were getting layers deeper than I expected into this Frankenstein character. I thought his relationship with Mia Goth's character, Elizabeth, was fascinating. She's kind of his intellectual match and also his brother-in-law's wife. And I thought there was an interesting failure of that character to be able to get Elizabeth and her not willing to accept him and a self-loathing there. Like, I don't know. I found it's funny because everything you're saying, I still just don't care. That's fine that like you don't care. You're not even like translating it into something that I care about. What do you need to care? I latched on to the story of the monster being something that did not choose to be created, but is just here, is very much an outcast, can't find his place in the world because the world doesn't want him, but then is forced to find that anyway. And I actually think that this telling of that side of the story was pretty strong. This film is divided into two parts, but unfortunately, this was the latter half of the film. I was already a bit tired. And when that side of the story came along, I could see why Guillermo del Toro wanted to tell the story. But then I just wondered, like, what's all the other stuff there for? Because I don't know what there is to connect with there. And after a while, my only thoughts were like, oh, that's a nice image. It's a good-looking image. That's a good one. But every now and then, the monster story would do something that would stick with me and would feel heartfelt, but it just wasn't enough. I mean, I wasn't watching the movie the same as you. I gotta say. Yeah, I don't know why. I was like leaned forward in my chair. I was just kind of swept up with it, and I was interested in everything it had to say about the story. I was interested in everywhere it went. It doesn't have to make me like emotional at all times for me to still care or think that it's interesting. Pinocchio, I cried at that film. But this one, I think most people did not cry. Like, it was not one of those. But I'm saying, like, whatever. Like, you don't have to cry at every movie. But was it emotionally engaging for you? It was a bit emotionally engaging. The other thing I feel like was missing for me is because it was such a large studio production, sometimes I felt like the scenes were playing out like video game cutscenes. And I don't know what it was, but they felt very hollow to me, and like just like things being like bah, 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 bah. And I was just like, this doesn't do anything for me. I felt like the script actually was sharper than I expected. I can imagine much more hollow dialogue than what we got. I thought that there were ideas in the dialogue. I got a story about parental relationships. It was about how a son reacts to a world that he only knows due to like his father being everything there was. I mean, it was the only thing he could say was Victor, and he's liberated by being able to say Elizabeth. I did see it as being a film that touches broadly on many themes. A tale of ego, a bit existential, a bit of a father-son story. I think I could have come away feeling stronger about the movie, emotionally stronger, or connecting to a certain piece of it more. I also was like really far back from the screen, so maybe if I rewatch it, I'll actually be more connected to it. Yeah, no, I mean, part of me wonders whether it was because I was so far back from the screen that I wasn't feeling the close-ups as much, or that I was wanting more close-ups. So, you know, take that as you will. I think it's interesting because we kind of reflect the two sides of this movie, where there are a lot of people that I talked to that were like, that was just a dull movie. It was like his other movies, but it was missing a spark. And I kind of watched it like, this is pretty in the same league as like what I've come to expect from Del Toro in the past decade. It's maybe not as good as his best movies, but it's not like terribly far off. You know, one thing I really loved about Guillermo del Toro's direction here was that he didn't shy away from the macabre. And there were a lot of freaky props here, like some gnarly prosthetics, a lot of gore. And I was surprised because I thought this was like a PG-13 endeavor, but indeed it is not. I like that it got dark like that because it's really a film about the fragility of life, but I like that the kind of opposite of that is just how gruesome and disgusting bodies are, and how like that's the flesh that somehow produces this soul or whatever it is. And also speaking of that, on another positive note, I think Jacob Elordi here as the monster was very good, and that kind of soul and that child came through in the monster. Yeah, it's like a performance akin to what Andy Serkis does with his body or something. But yeah, he added a great gentleness to it. Yeah, and you really can't tell it's him. You can't tell from the voice. You can't tell from how he appears. I would give this a 6 out of 10. And I would give this an 8 out of 10. Let's talk about awards. So a lot of our thoughts are really in the last video that we published about the TIFT Audience Awards, because this ranking number 2 for the People's Choice Award bears a lot on my prediction, how I'm feeling about it as an awards contender. When I exited the film, I kind of thought, okay, at minimum, it's costumes, makeup, production design, and it can win all 3 of them. The makeup on Jacob Elordi, I mean, that's a full body endeavor, and it's the most makeup of the year, and I think that will win the Oscar. Prosthetics. So there you go. Production design, absolutely insane. Yeah. The castle is freaking amazing, and it's just giant, and there are many huge, incredible set pieces in this film, and it'll be hard for other films to compete with it. I mean, I guess we have Wicked, which won last year, but sequels don't seem to win that often here. Maybe the Academy likes when you enter a new world, and I think this certainly checks that box. I think if they want to go for something that's not Wicked because they got an Oscar for the part 1 of the part 2, Frankenstein would take those awards. Yeah. Costumes could be the same thing with that. Yeah, that's what I mean. Costumes and production design. Yeah. Cinematography, I mean, this is very similar work, as we said, to what happened with Nightmare Alley and Shape of Water. It's Dan Lauston again, and that could happen once again. Yeah, I think that's more of one, though, that would come along if it was more of a Best Picture film. But not necessarily, because that was going to get nominated with Nightmare Alley, like, even though that was a maybe for Best Picture, you know? I would have this in, I believe, at this point. Score is a maybe. It is Alexander Desplat. I think his work here was really gorgeous and lovely. Maybe I would have liked some more memorable themes, but I just remember the score going really hard at many points. And this will be closer to Best Picture than some of his recent scores that got snubbed. I also thought there was some good sound work here. Maybe if it was in Best Picture, it could get sound. Jacob Elordi, I think, is the only performance that could contend. I think it's not quite going to be there, but I could even see him maybe squeezing out a SAG nomination. Maybe getting a little bit of critics support. Maybe on his best day. Yeah. I think this maybe could squeeze into Best Picture. We'll have to see how the field shapes up. You know, the audience and the critic scores, like, they're not amazing. But they're better than Nightmare Alley. They're good. You know, maybe there's just this infectious Del Toro love that exists within the Academy. Clearly exists. I think it's fair. Toronto. I think it's fair to have it in. I think it's fair to have it out. I don't really know which way to go. We'll have to see. Yeah, Netflix is also just very ambiguous as to what They're number 1, they're number 2, number 3 will even be. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Have you ever been in a manhunt with your dad?